All right, I think we'll get started. If everybody could just make sure to have your phone silenced as well so it doesn't interrupt the speakers that we have going on. My name is Judy Clark. I'm the Assistant Director here at Merrill Memorial Library. Thank you all for coming. This event, as well as others that we have done, is part of the Patricia Ramsay Civic Engagement Series. It was made possible by a generous endowment by Patricia's widow, Dr. Stephen Horowitz. We thank Dr. Horowitz for helping ensure Patricia's lifelong passion for civic life, justice, and education, which would continue to inspire our community. Patricia was not only a dedicated library trustee and volunteer, she was also an advocate for civil liberties, women's rights, and democracy, with a remarkable career that included work with the ACLU, Ruth Bader Ginsburg, Fenton Communications, and the Council on Foreign Relations. A proud graduate of Mount Holyoke and Columbia School of International and Public Affairs, Patricia brought brilliance and conviction to everything she did. Her work took her around the world, yet she remained deeply committed to service at home. Today, we honor her legacy by remembering her extraordinary life and by continuing the work she believed in. Thank you for being here to help us continue her mission forward. And with that, I present Eric Johnson, a volunteer with the League of Women Voters.
Thank you. Thank you. I guess I'm sort of locked in here behind the podium. Sorry, it sort of keeps me at a bit of a distance, but our sound system, I guess, works better that way. Can everyone hear me well? Yes. Okay, great. Well, thank you for having me. I'm Eric Johnson. I live in Portland, and I want to talk tonight about particularly, well, actually, I'll just mention the League of Women Voters. We're a nonpartisan organization. It's been for the last 105 years. We've been encouraging active and informed electorate, and I really appreciate your interest in the upcoming election. So that's the League of Women Voters. You've probably heard of it. You're probably familiar with it for many years. I'm here to talk today because November 4th is Election Day, and in addition to a handful of municipal elections and municipal questions, and I will make brief mention at the end of the 3 ballot questions you're going to have here that are sort of specific to Yarmouth. We do have 2 statewide ballot measures. My purpose here is primarily going to be to talk about question 1. I can give you a good presentation on question 1 and answer questions after the presentation about question 1. I'm going to give you a very brief bit of information about question 2, but that's not something I know enough about to answer any questions about. My main purpose here is to give you good information about question 1 tonight. So we'll decide on these 2 citizen-initiated questions in the election. Question 1 is about elections, and that's why I'm here. Question 2 is a gun safety bill, and if we have time, we can talk about that one. Here's question 1 that you'll see on the ballot. This is the exact wording you will see on your ballot. I'm going to take it in piece by piece because it's a lot to digest. So I'm going to show slides that take one piece of it at a time. The first bit of the wording is, do you want to change Maine election laws? So this question is a package of more than 20 changes to Maine's election laws. That's why the wording on the ballot is actually a sort of a brief summary compared to the actual law that's being proposed. So this question 1 is asking, if you want to make these changes to Maine elections law, and the first thing that it mentions that would be one of the changes is that all requests for absentee ballots would have to be made at least 1 week before Election Day, with very few exceptions for certain emergencies. Currently, voters can vote early in person through the Thursday before the election. those last 2 days, Wednesday and Thursday, are the 2 busiest in-person absentee days. And those last 2 days would be eliminated if this ballot question passes. And one thing I'll mention is, when I'm in this presentation, when I make reference to absentee voting or absentee ballots, just to make clear, I'm referring to all of the ways that you can do voting that aren't just at the polls on election day. So when I'm talking about absentee voting, I'm talking about you fill in your absentee vote and mail it in, you fill in your absentee ballot and drop it in a drop box, or you go and do in-person, what's called in-person absentee or in-person early voting with your ballot at the town hall. So all of those are, when I'm talking about absentee voting or early voting, I'm talking about all those things. So this is in terms of this particular provision about eliminating 2 days of absentee voting, that's eliminating 2 days of the early voting in person, where you could go into your town hall. So secondly, it mentions prohibit requests for absentee ballots by phone or family members. So every if this passes, if question 1 passes, every request for an absentee ballot would have to be made either online or in writing and delivered in person or by mail. No more calling in to the town clerk and saying, I'd like to have an absentee ballot. Also, it would end on the ongoing absentee voter status. That status has been available for people who are senior citizens over 65 and over, or are disabled. Now, actually, as written, currently, that law will, if this ballot question is not passed, the current law now would expand that to allow anyone to request ongoing absentee ballot status after the end of this year. But currently, it has been only seniors or people who are self-identified as disabled who could get ongoing, just automatically send it to me every time kind of absentee status. So this law, if this question passes, question 1 passes, it would say no, can't. You have to make a request every time if you want an absentee ballot. No ongoing status. So the next one is it bans prepaid postage. Some towns, this is totally discretionary town by town. Some towns in Maine put the postage on the return envelope for absentee ballots. Some towns have budgeted for that. They've decided it's enough of a pain in the neck for some people to go out and get postage stamps that they're going to do that. I don't know, since I don't live in Yarmouth, I don't know whether that's something that Yarmouth has done in the past or does currently. But some towns do provide postage to help make sure that that's not an impediment to returning the ballot by mail. So that would be if this question 1 passes, it would be illegal for a municipality to put postage on there. It limits the number of drop boxes. That is, each municipality could have only 1 drop box. Some municipalities in Maine now have 2. And the 1 drop box that would be allowed under question 1 would have to be located outside the municipal clerk's office. In Portland, for example, that would eliminate the drop box located on Canco Road. In some towns, it's outside of the place where people vote, but that doesn't happen to be the clerk's office, so that wouldn't be allowed. It's got to be right outside the clerk's office if question 1 passes. The provision that's mentioned about requiring voters to show certain photo ID. Anyone wishing to vote, whether in person at the polls or by absentee, if this passes, question 1 passes, they must show a valid, unexpired Maine driver's license, a non-driver ID card, a military ID, or passport in order to vote. The voter ID requirement also applies to absentee ballot requests. You've got to submit a photocopy of one of those things, or at least the number off of your driver's license in order to apply for an absentee ballot. Eligible voters who don't have a driver's license would not have to pay for a non-driver state ID. That will be, instead of paying $5, that will be free if this passes. There are other changes to election laws made by this. They include a longer absentee ballot request form, an additional form on a new identification envelope, which is required when returning an absentee ballot, limiting the help of a family member that a family member can provide to a voter, not allowing municipal clerks to manage the drop box. It would require a bipartisan team to be going every day to collect the ballots, sometimes more than once a day, to collect ballots. And new opportunities for voters to challenge the validity of other voters' ballots. Part of this question 1 language says any registered voter in town is empowered to challenge ballots that they want to challenge. So basically, any registered, say if you live in Yarmouth, any registered voter in Yarmouth will be empowered to challenge ballots of any other voter. And they could challenge them by alleging things like non-matching signatures, failure to comply with ID requirements, any number of other kinds of things that they could allege. So what it's asking, question 1 is it's a citizen-initiated bill put forward by the Dinner Table PAC. It's a conservative political action committee that led the effort to put question 1 on the ballot. The changes it proposes are significant, especially as they relate to absentee voting, which is used by between 40 and 45% of voters in recent elections. In 2024, 61% of voters over the age of 65 voted absentee. Absentee voting includes voting from home, voting by mail, early voting, and early in-person voting. The identification requirement calls for an unexpired Maine driver's license, non-driver ID, passport, or passport card, or military ID. So the pros and cons. While proponents don't point to irregularities in Maine elections, they claim the bill is necessary to strengthen election security and integrity. Opponents say that Maine's elections are safe and secure already and enjoy high participation. They claim that the bill will make it harder to vote, especially for the nearly half of Maine voters who rely on absentee voting the absentee voting option. Seniors, particularly seniors, rural Mainers, people with disabilities, those who lack transportation, people who work several jobs or have unpredictable job schedules, and many others. So a yes vote, this at least is a fairly straightforward question as ballot questions go, in that a yes vote means you want to enact the initiative and make these 20-some odd changes to Maine's election laws. If you want the changes if you want to change the Maine's election laws in these ways, vote yes. If a no vote says let's keep the laws the way that we have now, let's not change Maine's election laws, that'd be a no vote. So that was a lot of stuff. That was a lot of information. Who has questions?
Do you know who the Dinner Table Pact is? Like, where are they from? Are they in-state?
They're in-state.
Repeat the question?
Oh, thank you. She asked, do I know who the Dinner Table PAC is? Where are they from? Are they in-state? I don't know a ton about them, but I know that they are in-state. The most prominent leader of Dinner Table PAC that you may have heard of, because she's been in the news, is Laurel Libby, the state legislator who was sanctioned by the legislature regarding doxing the teenager. So Laurel Libby and Alex Titcomb are the two most visible leaders of Dinner Table PAC. And that's the organization that mobilized the resources to collect the signatures and put this on the ballot. Their funding has, in the past, they've gotten significant funding from Leonard Leo, who is prominent in funding the Federalist Society, which has been, working to get judges appointed to the legislature, to the federal bench, and they've more recently been getting funding from a national Republican Senate PAC, some national Republican organization is their main funder more recently. We'll see as the election approaches what other funds. On the other side, for the vote no, there's a very large coalition of Maine organizations that does include the Maine League of Women Voters. Did you have a question?
Yeah, I did. I was wondering if you could give any more detail around the process by which one voter would challenge another voter's ballot. Would they go to their town clerk and say, I think so-and-so did X, Y, Z?
I'm not a lawyer, and I don't know. I don't know much about the process of it. Someone who knows a little bit more about it than I has said that if there is a challenge, it would sort of become an emergency for the clerk, and they would sort of have to drop other things and immediately look into whether they'd have to investigate the basis of these objections, because of course they need to be able to report what the vote totals are. But I don't, in terms of I'm going beyond my depth there. I don't really know the details of how someone would challenge it and put that into motion.
That sort of gets at what my broader question was going to be, which is, isn't this just going to lead to the potential for tremendous delays in elections being completed? Because if every citizen can challenge every other citizen's vote, I don't know, by what mechanism could an election even be completed?
I don't know. Go ahead.
Just a couple of technical questions. When does a town have to receive the ballot, an absentee ballot, for it to be valid for that election? That
will not change. This ballot question doesn't change that, and that is, my understanding is that for many years, the rule has been absentee ballots must be received by the town by 8 p.m. on election day when the polls close. So it's at the same moment when the polls close, 8 p.m. on election day. Any ballot that's been received by 8 p.m. is going to be counted. Any ballot that comes in after 8 p.m. is not counted. Go ahead.
Another question. Looking at the photo ID issue, when a person registers to vote, and it's been a long time since I did it, is that person required to present any form of ID?
Yes. At this point, a person is already required to present identification and proof of residency, like a utility bill, or that is if they just moved in or they just moved at some point they moved across town or a different town or whatever, and their main state driver's license has their old address, but they have their utility bill from their new address. That's the sort of there's an identification requirement and also a proof of residency requirement already in Maine law.
Okay. Thank you.
Other questions? Go ahead.
Ongoing absentee voter status, is that available for anybody at this point in time?
That has been only available. I was delighted that when it went into effect a couple of years ago or so, I went into Portland City Hall and right away and signed up. They said, "You're the first one." I'm like, "Cool." So at that point, and I just recently turned 65, so I was all good. Up through the end of this calendar year, the ongoing status has been available. If you're 65 or over, you can request, always just send me an absentee vote. Don't make me an absentee ballot. Don't make me request it every time. Just send it to me. Which I did, and I've been happily just getting them in the mail and mailing them back. So but the other thing is people who are disabled can also request that just always send me an absentee ballot. Now that, my understanding is, after the 31st of December of this year, if the law isn't changed by question 1 passing, that possibility will be available, I believe, to all Maine voters, who they can just say, just send me an absentee. That's how I vote all the time. You know, maybe they know that they've got a transportation issue. Maybe they know they've got an unpredictable work schedule. Maybe they know that they're often traveling. And they, whatever reason, people will be able to just say, look, just send me an absentee ballot every time. Don't make me request it every time. So I believe that's going to be would be the change that happens at the end of this year, that as the law is currently written. It's just the rollout as the law is currently written. But if this question 1 passes, that's all done. There's no more ongoing status for senior voters or for disabled voters or anybody. There's just, we're back to the point of just make a request with proper identification every time you know, that you want to get an absentee vote. So that's the change that will happen if question 1 passes. Go ahead.
Yes, take that, gentleman.
I had mistakenly thought that a mailed-in ballot would be governed by, in terms of timeliness, would be governed by the postmark on the ballot, regardless of when it landed in the town clerk's office. But you're indicating that it has to be in the hands of the town by the end of that business day.
Yes,
The day of voting.
by 8 p.m.
So that would seem to indicate, unless you're voting really early, given the irregularity sometimes of recently of our mail deliveries, maybe get the word out to put it in a Dropbox.
Yeah, I mean, that's precisely because of my not being rock solid confident about the timeliness of mail deliveries. I've been putting mine in a Dropbox for many years before. I mean, that's what I routinely do. I just go and put it in a Dropbox. Go ahead.
This is sort of an arcane question, but has anybody ever tracked the results of absentee ballots versus the general election, and whether there's a significant difference in results between the way absentee voters vote and the voters as a whole?
I don't know. I'm sure somebody has studied this. In fact, I'm sure political consultants study this all the time and figure out whether particular people should be encouraged because they want their candidate to win. I'm sure that there's been research done on this, but I can't say that I'm familiar with what the results of those. I could speculate, but I don't want to speculate. Other questions? Go ahead, sir.
You mentioned a person, Leo, someone associated with
Leonard Leo.
Leonard Leo. Okay, thanks very much.
Yeah, he's just, you seem connected to the Federalist Society. Major funder of theirs. I don't know that he's given any money to this particular ballot question, but he's given to the dinner table PAC in the past quite a bit. Other questions? Okay. Well, my next question is, would you like a little bit of information on question 2? A little bit of information is what all I can propose to give you, and I cannot propose to answer questions on question 2 because I don't have much expertise on it at all. But I will give you the basics on question 2, which are also mentioned on the handout you have there. You've got the bottom 40% of your handouts about question 2 as well. So question 2, what you'll see on your ballot is these words, and it's also on the left and the bottom of your handout. Do you want to allow courts to temporarily prohibit a person from having dangerous weapons if law enforcement, family, or household members show that a person poses significant danger of causing physical injury to themselves or others? So it's what's called a red flag law that's being proposed. Maine already has what's called a yellow flag law. And this is a red flag law. So go right ahead.
Is it not true that we will continue to have the yellow flag law even if we adopt the red flag law?
That is my understanding. My understanding is that if we adopt this question, if a majority of Mainers vote yes on question 2, we will now have a new red flag law, but we will also still have the yellow flag law. That is, the yellow flag law, in brief, says that law enforcement must be the one to initiate the process, and the person who's potentially a danger to themselves or others must be taken into protective custody and receive a mental health evaluation. That will still be a possible way to go about it. It's just that you will also allow family members and household adults in the household who feel there's a real danger. You will allow a way for them to initiate the process. In either case, the person does have due process rights to go. In either case, the person is going to be allowed to challenge all this before a judge and say, no, this is not. There's no reason for me to have my guns taken away. So they do. In either case, the due process is still there. But let me take this one piece at a time. So the courts, it will allow courts to temporarily prohibit a person from having dangerous weapons in a new way. Then, I'll go on to the next one. So if law enforcement, family, or household members show, so if law enforcement, that's already in place as the yellow flag law. But this will say also, but family or household members would now be able to show that the person poses a significant danger of causing physical injury to themselves or others. So that would, it opens up that new option. So what it's asking, the bill describes a process by which family members, housemates, and law enforcement agencies and officers could petition the court to keep dangerous weapons out of the hands of someone they have reason to fear may harm themselves or others. You may have heard of the phrase red flag to describe this type of law. These laws are in effect in 21 states. Red flag laws. 21 other states currently have red flag laws. So what it's, the people who are in favor of this say a true red flag law could protect future violent gun incidents. And people opposed to it say the current yellow flag law is sufficient, and some have asserted that the new red flag law would be an infringement on their right to bear arms. So both the current yellow flag law and the proposed red flag law, that's proposed by question 2, aim to prevent gun violence. Question 2 proposes a more direct way for families and others to seek removal of weapons. It would not replace or change the yellow flag law that is in place today. And under that law, a person has to be taken into police custody for a mental health evaluation before weapons could be removed. And that option would still exist if question 1 passes, or if question 2 passes, excuse me. Proponents say that the two laws can exist side by side, providing more options to reduce gun violence. Opponents have argued that one will undermine the other and cause confusion. So this is it's a fairly straightforward question. Yes means enact the new red flag law. No means keep our laws as they are. Neither vote is to change the existing yellow flag law. Neither vote will, whichever you do, you will not change the existing yellow flag law. That will remain. So I can't, I shouldn't put this up there because I'm afraid, I mean, I'll take a question, but I'm mostly I'm going to plead ignorance here. Go ahead.
I'll just make a statement. Could you go back to the pros and cons sheet? There we go. So taking each of those two statements, and I'll say in advance, I'm going to vote yes on this, but opponents may view as sufficient. Well, clearly, in the case of Robert Card and the Lewiston shootings, it was not sufficient because the family made great, beyond the scope of what you could reasonably hope for, efforts And they were let down by both the Army and the Sheriff's Department. It failed, and we lost 17 people. So much for that. As to an infringement on right to bear arms, I'm a Marine Corps veteran. I'm a trained rifleman. I am still a competitive target shooter, and bold is what I say. And there's a lot of misinformation out there and assumptions about people that the gun owners as a block will oppose anything, and that's just not true. There are plenty of gun owners like me who, yes, enjoy our Second Amendment rights, but recognize the need for limitations. You don't get a driver's license without passing a test. Well, I'll stop there, but you get my point.
Yeah, thanks for your input. Thanks for those comments. You're speaking from a perspective that I could not represent, and I appreciate that. Go ahead, sir.
Yeah, just a couple of definition questions. When it says temporarily limit, what does the word temporarily mean?
I don't know.
Okay. And they talk about a person is an extreme risk. What does the word extreme mean in this context?
I don't know. I mean, I think I have heard that there's a maximum. I think the judge could impose. I'm just speculating. I do remember reading, because I did glance through some of the wording. There was something like a maximum of a year, and then something would have to be renewed. But I don't know if that's typical. Go ahead, sir.
I know that it's not a confiscation of the weapons.
Right.
It is not.
It is not. If the person works through the episode, or if the judge is not convinced that he or she don't constitute a threat, and the weapons have been frozen or put into custody of the local police department, they would be returned.
So you're talking about temporary custody of the weapons, and they would be returned after the period of time is over. Is
They're no longer a threat.
But not like permanent confiscation.
Correct.
I'm glad you know more about this than I do, because, as I say, this is not an area of expertise for me.
Well, it's a sore point, because I go to my gun club and there are conversations I can't get into.
Yeah.
Oh, I should mention, I did get a tiny bit of information about the 3 ballot questions that you're going to be facing if you live in Yarmouth, that are specific to the town of Yarmouth. 2 of them are specific to the town of Yarmouth. One of them is a water district question that applies to Yarmouth and North Yarmouth. Would you like a tiny bit of information about that? And okay, so the only reason I know about them is that the Portland Press Herald was good enough to print a nice little article that just encapsulates all 3 of them. And it was exactly a week ago today. So what I'm going to tell you is, if you too want to have the information that I have in front of me, what I recommend is go to the Press Herald website and look up the article that was in the October 7th, Press Herald, just exactly a week ago today. The article was on page C3, and it's headlined, "Here's what Yarmouth voters will decide at polls." So
So are you saying that you got no information, you received no information from the town as to what's going on?
I live in Portland. So because I live in Portland, I receive nothing from Yarmouth on a regular basis.
But are you in touch with Town Hall in Yarmouth as a representative of the League of Women Voters?
I haven't been in touch with the Town Hall of Yarmouth before I came here to present, because I was primarily coming here to present on question 1, which is a statewide issue. And so I mean, all I can pretend to have any real background in is question 1, which is a statewide issue which wasn't very specific to Yarmouth. So
you know, a couple of years ago, Barbara Kaufman, the former chair of the local chapter of the League of Women Voters, had a sit down with our then town manager, Nat Tupper. I was responsible for pushing that because we were not getting sessions like this in advance of elections. Information was not being put out. And so the league stepped up. And I had thought that coming from that would be a continuing relationship with the league, and that's evidently not the case.
well, it may be for the local local person who may be involved in the league and also living here in Yarmouth. I don't pretend to know all the people in the league, and I'm sorry that this was a very high bar that Barbara Kaufman set, and I applaud her for having done that. But I'm a volunteer for the League of Women Voters, and I cannot pretend to have any great expertise in matters of Yarmouth. But at least I did read the article and have it in front of me, and if anybody is unable to access this information about the 3 ballot questions online, I did go ahead and run off on my home copier for photocopies, and can hand you the paper versions of this information about the 4 ballot questions. So I do have some basic, and so I'm going to just give you the basics. Municipal question 1 that you're going to be facing is about upgrading the Royal River pump station. So that's municipal question 1. You'll be asked whether to approve the design and replacement of the Royal River sewage pump for $7.5 million, which has reached capacity. 2/3 of the town's wastewater flows through that pump. It's located near the Rowe School. It was last upgraded in 1992. It first prompted concern when it exceeded capacity in January of 2024, and it overflowed into the Royal River, with subsequent studies finding it was operating near maximum capacity because of the town's population growth. So there's a little bit more, there's a few more paragraphs about that, but that's some basics about question 1 on your town ballot. Municipal question 2 is extending the deadline for citizen petitions. When Yarmouth residents are in disagreement with a town council ordinance, the town charter grants that residents can overrule the action with a petition. After getting signatures from over 7% of registered voters in the town, or 250 voters, whichever is greater, a public hearing and referendum vote on the action must be called. Currently, Yarmouth residents have 10 days within the enactment of the ordinance to complete the petition. This November, voters will decide whether to expand this time limit to 30 days. So the question is, do you want to give people 30 days to challenge it, or stick with just 10 days to challenge it? That's question 2 in your town ballot. There's a separate question that's not technically on the town ballot. It's a water district, but it's just for Yarmouth and North Yarmouth. And it's repealing and replacing the charter of the Yarmouth Water District. So voters in both Yarmouth and North Yarmouth will vote whether to repeal and replace the charter of the Yarmouth Water District, which services areas of both towns. The new version of the charter will simplify the document, modernize its language, and update the processes it dictates, according to the Yarmouth Water District General Manager, Eric Gagnon. It will not impact water rates or cost taxpayers. So this is, replacing this quasi-municipal organization's charter first required the change to go through the Maine legislature, which it did, and the act was signed by Governor Janet Mills this spring. Interesting, here's something. The Yarmouth Water District will hold a public hearing on October 15th. I believe that's tomorrow. October 15th at 6 p.m. to discuss the changes with residents who wish to learn more. So tomorrow at 6 p.m., the Yarmouth Water District was going to hold a public hearing. It does not in this article mention where that will be. But
It's a secret.
Yeah.
do you happen to know where that, anyone happen to know where that?
It will be at the Water District headquarters on Sligo Road, just across the tracks,
Oh, yeah,
as you go out of town on Sligo Road.
yeah.
Thank you.
I'd love to speak to these 3 local questions. One of the reasons I came tonight was to make sure that there wasn't another one that I was unaware of, because I hate surprises when I get into the voting booth.
One of the reasons I love to get the absentee ballot ahead of time so I can see them all and go, oh my gosh, another one I need to learn about.
And if people don't mind, I'd love to speak to these things and try to be an objective commentator on it.
How are people feeling about wanting to hear a little bit of that perspective on the local ballot questions? Okay, I'm seeing some nodding heads.
Okay, my name is Ed Ashley. I've been a town volunteer for 25 odd years, involved in a lot of ordinance work, involved in a lot of different committees over time and try to keep track of things that are going on with particular reference to the planning department.
Well, can everyone hear Ed? Good, thanks.
The first, refresh my memory, the first.
First one was upgrading the Royal River Pump Station.
Yes. I spoke to the council on this question. Last year, we voted a similar bond issue for the harbor pump station.
Yeah.
And that was passed, and it's in process, no construction. They've not gone to market with it yet. So that's out there. We're already committed to spend $7.5 or $7 million.
Okay, according to this article, it was $7 million for the harbor pump station that was last year.
And what we have recently learned is we, taxpayers, ratepayers, one thing we learned was that when you get your sewer bill, one would think that you'd be entitled to assume that it was directly connected to the actual costs of running and maintaining and processing our sewage, running that system. Well, it turns out it's a bit more than that. And the council refers to it as an income stream. And some of it has gone to the general fund. And their answer to that has been that, well, that reduced your property taxes to that extent in those years. To which my response was, as a ratepayer and a taxpayer, I would have liked to have had a voice in that decision. And you have undermined my trust and confidence in when I get my sewer bill. I know for a fact that it does not. It represents more money than is to cost, than is involved in the operational expenses, plus sinking fund payments. We have an old infrastructure, 35 years old. Another taxpayer found that since 2019, whoever made the decision, whether it was the then town manager or the town council, they have not made any sinking fund payments into ultimate repair or replacement of the sewer treatment facilities, the hard infrastructure. And then we were presented with the need, and the council voted for, and I wasn't sure if it was going to be on the ballot, a moratorium on development within basically the MDR, which is the area in principle that is served by this Royal River pump station. There simply is no capacity.
Yeah, this article that I was reading from mentions that in August there was approved a 6-month development on moratorium in certain areas, giving time for the pump to be upgraded to handle more flow, et cetera.
That's misleading because 6 months is the legal limit on a moratorium like this under state law, but it can be extended, and it will be extended because it has to be extended, because the process of floating the bond issue and undertaking the replacement will take 2 to 3 years, 3 years easily. So,
Yeah, that's mentioned.
so we have a situation where just recently we adopted a new comprehensive plan which designated a growth area with the promotion of increased density, more buildings, with an emphasis on affordable housing, but no answers really as to how that would be paid for. Just the thought that if it was easier to build, then people would build. But that, in my opinion, that doesn't get to the question. The issue with affordable housing comes down to money, pure and simple. So, but we have a designated growth area in which now no growth is permitted. We have a moratorium in effect. The town engineer is not to fault on this. He had issued reports warning that we were coming up to capacity on that pump station. It was time for replacement. And now we're looking at another $7.5 million bond issue, which is on this ballot here. And the statements made in the comprehensive plan about promoting growth in the in-village area and the MDR, just somebody didn't do their homework. There were clearly constraints, and this came evidently as a big surprise. Well, it should not have been a surprise because the information was in the town files. So I let the council know that I was unhappy with the state of affairs.
Just a question, I don't know what kind of time frame people have, but did you want to also address the question of extending the deadline for citizen petitions?
That's a whole different issue, but the point is that
Question two,
what was left out in that description was that there's a certain minimum number of signatures required in order to get a referendum on the ballot to reverse some action.
7% of registered voters or 250 voters, whichever is greater.
Yes, and at this point it would be more than 250. 10 days. I have no affiliation with the people that were promoting that. I'm aware of the initiative. I don't object to it. I think it's reasonable. 10 days is not very much time to round up several hundred signatures. So I don't think 30 days is unreasonable. On the other hand, I'm not a proponent of governance by referendum either.
So one thing I want to mention is if anybody here is going to have difficulty getting online access to that article from a week ago in the Press Herald, I do have a few photocopies and be happy to hand them out. Anybody who is not going to be able to.
I've got more back.
Oh, you've got more back there. Fantastic. So you've got some copies of it. Thank you. So we also have as I say, the Water District question, repealing and replacing the charter. That's going to be on. Any thoughts that anyone wants to share about that? Do you want to share about that?
I wondered about that, and so I called the Water District. I wondered if there was going to be some little companion thing there. I wondered if our Water District bills were similar to the sewage bills, or maybe but no, that's a separate corporate entity. And a bill from the Water District is the Water District's bill.
Oh,
So,
before anyone else leaves, I just also want to mention, sorry, if you want further details on questions 1 or 2 in the state ballot, question 1 that I talked about regarding absentee voting and voter ID, and question 2 regarding the red flag, you can go to the Secretary of State's website. If you go to the Secretary of State's website, you can see every word that's on that, and a full summary of every provision. So if you, just to mention, I'm sorry, because I know some people are leaving. I want to just mention, if you just go to the Secretary of State's website, and if you go on a laptop or a tablet, it's going to be on the home page, I think on the top right, under the title, Important Information. It's a very top item. It's called Maine Citizens Guide to the Referendum Election. Just click on Maine Citizens Guide to the Referendum Election. It's the top item under Important Information on the Maine Secretary of State's website, and that will give you everything you could possibly want to know about questions 1 and 2, including the actual wording, the lawyerly wording of the proposed law, and every single detail of every provision, and then scroll past all that. Scroll past that 15-page legalese stuff, unless you're a lawyer and a glutton for punishment, or a glutton for punishment like I was to read the whole thing. But if you scroll past it, you'll get to the summary, and then some arguments for and against by an advocate, like the organization that put it on the ballot. They have their little one-pager, why you should vote for it. 2 organizations that argued against it. And likewise, you can get the same kind of thing for question 2 on the red flag. So it's a very useful resource. It's Maine Secretary of State's website. Give you everything you want on this. Sorry to interrupt. I just
No,
should
that's
be looking
what I
at it.
did with the water district question. I called the water district and they gave me a link to the actual bill, which the governor had signed, and it seems pretty harmless.
Okay, well, thank you all for coming and for participating and for sharing and for asking questions. I really appreciate your being here tonight, so thank you.